Hello, everyone, and welcome to my honest thoughts on Sonic Prime, the new Netflix show about Sonic, of course. So, um, it's there's going to be spoilers, okay? I can't talk about this without there being spoilers. So, if you haven't watched it, go ahead and watch it because I'm going to be spoiling some stuff. So, I didn't really have any expectations going into this. I try to go into most media, especially Sonic related, with no expectations because then it can surprise me, and it might be better than I thought it was going to be. That's always good. So I had really no expectations going into it. And after watching this, I can definitely say that this is the most okay show I've ever seen. Yeah, there's nothing I really love about it, nothing I hate about it. As far as a Sonic show goes, I think it's okay. The animation's pretty good, the voice acting's okay, the dialogue's okay, the writing's okay. Everything's okay, which for Sonic is actually pretty good. But let's go into some more details on why I think it's okay. So, what's the story? Well, the story is one day when Sonic is battling Dr. Eggman as usual. Eggman's trying to get his hands on something called the Paradox Prism, and Sonic, being Sonic, he acts without thinking and attacks and accidentally shatters the prism, which causes it to shatter and create what they like to call the Shatterverse, which is basically a bunch of parallel universes, each of which holding a piece of the Paradox Prism, or a shard as they like to call it in the show. And Sonic has to figure out a way to restore balance and get back home while going through all these different worlds and different incarnations of his friends and even Eggman. So the first place he goes to is called New York City, which is basically Green Hill if Robotnik or Eggman. Sorry, I'm such an old school Sonic fan that I can't help but call him Robotnik sometimes. So if I do this at any point in this review, I'm sorry. But anyway, basically if Eggman had won, everything is roboticized. Basically, it's mechanical, it's futuristic, and all the woodland creatures are basically enslaved. But this is actually not run by Dr. Eggman. Instead, it's run by the Chaos Council, which is not a combination of a bunch of Sonic villains, which probably would have been cooler, but like 5 different versions of Eggman. None of them are actually Eggman technically. They're like Eggman if he was a one joke pony. There's a baby one, there's an old one, there's an edgy teenage gamer, there's a Japanese one, I think. I don't know. I thought he was supposed to be like a hippie or something, but then he has like a samurai robot armor, and he says he's going to turn the good guys into origami, and he has like a samurai top knot hairdo. I don't know what they were doing. It sounds like they were trying to like do a Japanese version of Eggman without being called racist. I don't know. It's weird. I have to say I'm not very big on the Chaos Council as antagonists. They're just not that interesting. They're kind of bland because they're all one-note joke kind of characters. And so far in the 8 episodes that have been released, they just weren't that interesting or funny or whatever. Not to mention, the one who I think is really the antagonist is Amy, or in this version, Rusty Rose, who is basically a metal version of Amy. And they really were married to this idea because the 2 out of the 3 worlds that they show in these first 8 episodes, Amy is the antagonist. She was also the antagonist in the jungle world. I mean, yeah, she's never technically evil because, in the robot version, she's programmed that way, and in the jungle one, she's just a misguided person who was trying to save the forest. But the point is she's the antagonist. They were really married to this idea for some reason. And even in the pirate world, which has no real antagonist at first, Rusty Rose comes in and becomes the antagonist, basically. So, yeah, like I said, really married to this idea. And it seems like they really wanted Amy to be anything but the love interest. Like, there's, like, no mention of Amy having anything, no kind of love for Sonic. And I get it. It's this day and age, and, there's a big deal about not making female characters just the love interest, which is fine and dandy and all. But that doesn't change the fact that was always a huge part of Amy's character. That's not the only part of her character. But to the casual fan, a lot of people be like, well, that's her whole thing. She loves Sonic. Only real hardcore fans who have been around forever and have, read the comics and, all this other stuff would know that there's a lot more to Amy than just loving Sonic. But to the casual fan, I've seen people, talk about it, and they were really confused. They're like, what is Amy's through line now? Like, what are they doing with her? What's the deal with her? Because it's kind of like having Amy not, to the casual fan, having Amy not love Sonic is like having Sonic but not being fast. It's like you take away a huge part of the character. And like I said, it's not a bad thing. It's just that they don't really give Amy much to do besides being the antagonist. in 2 out of the 3 worlds. And in the pirate world, she's not really doing anything. Because when you take that away, well, she really got nothing going on. But because these are all different worlds, there's different things going on in the New York City. Rouge and Knuckles are fighting a resistance force, basically. It's basically the Sonic Sat AM cartoon or the comics, basically, except instead of Sally, it's now Rouge. And Knuckles is part of that. And Tails is basically his own thing. He's giving himself 9 tails. He calls himself 9. Oh, I just got that. 9 tails. It's like the Pokemon. Huh. Anyway. So yeah, he's called 9. And he has robotic tails. And this is a world where Sonic never existed, so he never had a friend or anything. So he's very cold. He's very, I stand alone. I do my own things, kind of thing. So that's something kind of new, I guess, whatever. This whole multiverse thing is a big thing right now these days. I feel like they only did this because Marvel's doing it or whatever. But I gotta say, though, the whole multiverse thing is kind of, well, it's an interesting thing. It's also, I think, a huge downfall of this show because the biggest problem I have, there's 2 problems I really have with this show. The first one, and it's probably the biggest one, because the other one might be a bit of a nitpick, I don't know. But the first one, and I think this really is a problem, is that this show is very repetitive. Basically, Sonic goes to a new world. He's like, he sees his friends like, oh, hey, my friends, we're friends and everything. And they're like, we don't know you. You're not our friend. We don't need friendship, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, nah, man, friendship is great. I'm going to help you out, and I'm going to give this great big speech and fight against, whatever, and we can all be friends. And they're like, you're right. Friendship is great. We're good now. It's stuff like that. We're all friends and everything. It's repetitive. It's very repetitive, kind of thing. And, I know and then this leads to my second problem. Sonic is a bit of an idiot in this show. He's a bit of an incompetent idiot. Like when he first goes to the jungle world from New York City, he immediately comes across, Big. Oh yeah, Big's in the show too. Yeah, I almost forgot. He comes across Big, Rouge, and Knuckles, and he's like, he talks to them like they are the New York City like rebels, and it's clear they're not. He's clearly in another environment, and they don't look anything like the other ones, and he's still acting like they are. And I'm like, dude, I know Sonic is not the sharpest tool in the drawer, but he's not this stupid. But he is in this show, and it happens. Luckily, in the pirate world, he finally starts to realize, oh, this is what's going on, because he's world hopped a few times by this point. But for a while there, I'm like, dude, you're not this stupid, right? Like, he's real, for someone who's got to go fast, he's pretty slow in this show. Like, mentally, he's slow, It's kind of nuts. And he also feels incompetent, too, because he gets his butt kicked a lot. Like, whenever he's fighting anything besides, like, robot grunts, and even sometimes then he takes a few shots because he's not paying attention. But he gets his butt kicked by pretty much everybody. Like, I understand him getting his butt kicked by Shadow, who's in this series as well. Not for long, but he is. I understand him getting whooped by him because he's on his level. He's, like, one of the few people who's actually on Sonic's level. But he gets whipped by Amy, too, like Jungle Amy, who just has, like, a big rock hammer. Like, you think he'd be fast enough to dodge a huge rock being swung his direction, but no, he gets his butt kicked by her as well. It just makes him look really, really incompetent. And speaking of him getting his butt kicked, shouldn't he have died a while? They actually established in the first episode that he collects rings, and when he gets hit, rings fly out of him. And then when he goes to New York City, he has no rings. Yet he still gets his butt kicked a lot. And like, shouldn't he have died? And I'm only bringing this up because the show brought it up. Like, if you're going to have that ring mechanic, then you got to stick with it. It just feels like a fan servicey reference that really goes nowhere, Because it's like, if we see in the first episode that he does collect rings, and he does lose rings when he gets hit, well, shouldn't he die when he gets hit without rings? Or else what's the point? Why is he collecting rings? It's pointless, isn't it? I don't know. Like I said, I only bring it up because the show brought it up. There's a couple of references in here. Some of them are fine. Others, like I said, like the rings one is pointless. But, So, so that's a story. It's kind of what you'd expect. And I can go with a story that's something, I'd seen or expected if the characters and the writing are good. So are the characters and writing good? They're okay, like I said. It's weird because they're going to so many different worlds that you get new characters every time, basically. Like, yes, these are the same characters, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Rouge, and Big, but they're different versions of them. They have different needs, different wants, different situations and context and stuff like that. And they don't spend enough time with all of them to really flesh them out as their own individual characters, and they all kind of blend together. They take the most basic, traits of these characters and kind of just put them there. Knuckles is always a bit of a lovable goof. He's always suspecting that something's a trap or something like that. He's kind of a little bit of a comedy relief at times. Tails is always, he's a nice guy, even though, except in the jungle world where he's like a dog thing almost, like he doesn't speak or anything. He's not even really a character in that one, Basically, it's just Amy's the antagonist twice, 2 out of 3, and Rouge is also just kind of there. I feel like Rouge really didn't get much to do. Like, she has important roles, like she's the rebel leader, but in terms of her personality, it's just, I don't know, it's kind of missing her edge, and I don't know if that's because I know there's a lot of Sonic media where they want to tone down her sexiness or whatever, because, it's kids media and stuff like that, whatever. Whenever it's American made, it's always like that. Whenever it's Japanese made, they can sometimes, do other stuff, but, whatever. The voice acting and the dialogue, let's talk about that. So the voice acting, for the most part, is fine. I think all the voices are pretty good. I'm not huge on Rouge's voice. It's not anything against the voice actor. I know this voice actor. I've seen her other work. She was in Friendship is Magic, I believe. So, yeah. And so it's not her fault. It's just that I don't think the writing really gives her much to work with. And like I said, it's kind of missing the edge that Rouge usually has. But I don't know. I'm a little picky about that because Rouge has always been one of my favorite characters because she always had kind of that edge. She was always kind of interesting. She always, she was unique, kind of, and she doesn't hook up with Shadow. I mean, not hook up as in romantic. I mean, like, she's not with Shadow, which I always felt was interesting in the games. It was like one of the few highlights of Sonic 06 where, Rouge and Shadow are kind of together, and Rouge says that she's going to stick with him no matter what. It's like they got a nice little bond going there, but they don't have any on-screen time in this one. So, and I know a lot of people ship her and Knuckles, but they don't really have any chemistry in this one. There's no chemistry between any of the characters in this one, I feel like, And again, it's because they keep going to different worlds and there's different relationships and different, situations and circumstances. So it's just, nothing really tends to stick, it's not long enough for it to happen. They just go somewhere, Sonic deals with the problem of the day, and goes on. Now, the biggest one is obviously New York City, because now, toward the end, the Eggmans realize that there are other shards, and they want to get them and take over all the entire multiverse or whatever. And so that's when, towards the very end, where worlds start colliding and things kind of get interesting, like, because they're the only consistent characters. The Chaos Council and Rusty Amy are the only ones that go from one world to another, along with Sonic. So they're like the permanent characters, kind of, the ones while the other ones are just in their own world. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, because we only have 8 episodes to go on. But right now, I'd say the dialogue and characters and everything, they're just okay. They do their job. But the characters that we have to stick with, like Sonic, like I said, he's fine, but kind of an incompetent idiot, for at least for these first couple episodes. The Chaos Council is not very interesting. Rusty Amy's fine. Like, she does her job as an antagonist, but being a robot, she doesn't have much personality, because that's kind of the joke. But, so I think they're going to visit more worlds, probably. There's going to be more stuff going on, but I feel like this show might be trying to do too much. We'll have to wait and see. We'll have to see how it all comes together. It is only the first couple episodes, and hopefully we get more. You never know with Netflix. They tend to cancel stuff, even if they're popular, so we'll have to wait and see. But that's my thoughts on the show. I think it's fine. And as far as other people, I've seen a couple other people's opinions. They're like, yeah, it's okay. A lot of people, I think the worst thing I've ever heard people say is, it's fine, but it's not for me, Like, they have their own problems with it, and they're like, it's fine, but I'm not going to probably watch anymore. And the best I can say is, people like this character design for this character, this, and, this joke was funny, and, it's nothing overall, just, like, these very small things, It's not, like, and no one's claiming this is to be amazing or anything, because I don't think you really can. I think it's got too many problems, and everything is just fine, There's nothing that really drags it down, aside of maybe being a bit repetitive, but, that's it is what it is. For Sonic, I think good is fine, it's good, because it's like, I'd rather have a Sonic Unleashed than a Sonic 06, I'm okay with okay, I'll take it. It's been a decent year for Sonic. We got, I saw the second Sonic movie this year. We got Sonic Prime, Sonic Frontiers seems to be making the fandom happy, at least. Sonic's in a good place, doing pretty good, and I think we should all take that. It could be worse. We all know, anyone in the Sonic fandom knows, it could be worse. And we got a third movie coming out. We got a lot more content for Sonic Frontiers coming out. There's going to be more of this show, hopefully. It's fine. I'll probably watch the rest of it. I'm invested enough, and I hope, it gets a little bit better. Maybe learn from the mistakes of these first couple episodes and, hear what people are saying and maybe make some changes. But what do you guys think about this show? Have you seen it? Hopefully you have, because I just spoiled a lot of it. But yeah, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.